that, welcome to everyone. Thank you so much. I also love when we start meetings with music. I have my team is much better at doing that than I am, but it always brings up the vibe. So thanks team for getting that started. Well, welcome. We're super excited to have this group here today. Purpose for today is really just to give you a little glimpse into the life of what is like at DoorDash, particularly to work in the strategy and operations organization. So we'll explain a little bit about what that means, give you a flavor of different projects, all those good things, and what it's like to work here and how people have navigated their careers here. Before we jump into it, just a few admin things. The recruiting team is on and they will be answering Q&A in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen as we go. And then we will save 10 minutes for live Q&A for either things that we didn't get to in that chat or if folks have new questions that have come up. And then we have an awesome panel who I will have introduce themselves here shortly. Here to chat and share their experiences with you. And before we do that, and I'll introduce myself as well, I want to talk a little bit about why strategy and operations is likely different at DoorDash from what you see in other companies and organizations. At the end of the day, DoorDash is a mixture of bringing tech together with the physical world, right? We have a very strong logistics business, but tech powers it. And we are starting to sell more software type services as well. And so very different from other pure tech companies where it's very product driven, very different from other companies where there's not as much of a tech component. And strategy and operations is truly the glue that holds it all together and keeps the team kind of understanding the vision and then overseeing the execution and all that good stuff. And so the terms S&O get thrown out all the time. And I just wanted to ground us into it might be a little bit different here at DoorDash than what you hear at other companies. So again, this is just a DoorDash perspective. Cool. So with that, let me do a quick intro on our org structure, and then I'll get into myself and then the rest of the panelists. I'm going to give you the org structure first so that you kind of understand where we all fit. So our president, the president of DoorDash is Prabir. He's also our COO, and everyone in strategy and operations rolls into Prabir. We have our tech functions, which is product, engineering, we have communications. Those are all direct into the CEO. But Prabir has everything related to running the business, sales, operations, all those things. And within that, we have two businesses that a few main business lines. We have our marketplace organization, which most people know, which is our core app. You go to the DoorDash app, place an order for delivery. So some of the folks you'll be hearing from today work on the core marketplace. Others work on the marketplace, but in our new verticals industries. So for example, doing grocery delivery or, alcohol delivery, things like that. And then we have our ads and promos business, which is separate. We also have our platform business, which is our white label business. For example, if you go to the McDonald's app and place an order for delivery, we're doing that delivery as well. And then we also have a really big part of our business, which is our merchant organization, which is sales, account management. But we have a strategy and ops team that sits there as well that helps us think about what are the best restaurants to get on the platform, what are the right products to sell, how do we bring those to market, and how do we run an efficient merchant business. And so you'll get a flavor. So just real quickly about myself, I have been at DoorDash for 6 years. I started on that marketplace side of the business. I was the general manager of New York, and we launched New York. When I started, we were just live in Manhattan and Brooklyn. We launched New Jersey, Long Island, Connecticut, upstate New York. And then over time, I moved over to the platform business, that white label business that I was talking about, and I lead our restaurant vertical there. And I live in New Jersey. I have 2 little kids, 1 and 3. It's a handful. I also have a crazy dog. But the fact that I'll leave you or start this with is before DoorDash, I've never been at another company for more than 1 to 2 years, and I've been here for 6. So the data speaks louder than any words I could say. I love it here, and it's been an incredibly rewarding journey. So I will kick it to Sebastian to introduce himself. Oh, and sorry, one last thing. When everybody introduces themselves, please share your favorite DoorDash go-to meal. Mine is Milburn Deli. I live in New Jersey. For anybody who lives in New Jersey, don't ever go look at my DoorDash history. It's all Milburn Deli. It is delicious. They were actually an anchor partner that we launched the whole market around, and have always been one of the biggest merchants on DoorDash in this area. Oh no, somebody doesn't like Milburn Deli. Woof. All right, Sebastian.
Thank you, Caitlin. Hey, everybody, I'm Sebastian. I also am on the platform business, so same as Caitlin, only I work on the non-restaurants business. So specifically, I'm on the fulfillment strategy and operations team, and then my team focuses more like on a lot of things like cost drivers and Dasher efficiency and things of those nature. I've been here at DoorDash for about 1.5 years now, and then before DoorDash, I started my career in the military. Was a Marine Corps officer for about 6 years. Then got my MBA, and then kind of came into this like tech last mile space. Was at Amazon for a couple of years. Worked at a startup as like a regional GM for a little bit, and then came here. And similar to Caitlin, I kind of bounced around. Wasn't really happy at my other jobs, and I intend to be here for a long time. It's been great so far. We just a quick shout out for any veterans on the call. I'm also in the veterans ERG group. It's awesome. We do like competitions, and we share stories, and it's just a really fun group to be in. I'm also married. I have a 2-year-old. I'm also in the parents at DoorDash ERG group. We also do a lot of great events there. So and then my go-to order on DoorDash is probably just Jersey Mike's. I order a lot of number 9 Club Supreme. So if you go through, you probably see that quite often. Cool. I guess I'll turn it over to Janae.
Thanks, Sebastian. So hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Janae. I'm currently a senior manager on our new verticals organization, specifically working for our first-party delivery service platform, which is DashMart. I've been here for about 2.5 years now, primarily trying to get a lot of new products to market, working on efficiency and utilization of our stores. So it's been a very varied and mixed journey. I actually started my career straight out of college at Deloitte. So I did a bit of an industry career change, working first in risk management consulting, and then going to DoorDash. So it's been a good ride. From New Jersey, proud New Jerseyan. I do have a puppy. His name is Jersey. He's great. And my go-to order, I actually have a sweet tooth. It's definitely a dessert. Bakery local in my neighborhood. I live in Jersey City. It's called Stack Creamery. So go-to order is they allow you to make ice cream sandwiches. So I have like 2 different cookies, chocolate chip cookie on the top, vegan vanilla ice cream because I love vanilla, and then an Oreo cookie on the bottom. So it is great. And I will pass it off to Jonathan.
Thanks so much, Janae. Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathan. Pronouns are he, him. I am based out of Chicago, actually, and I actually lead our employee experience team that supports our DashMart teams. On the business side, I'll actually get to share a little bit about my role and what that means, specifically with an SNO really focused on our employees. And I have a fur baby. So that's actually he's not here right now, otherwise he would be trying to comment on me. He's getting a groom. But other than that, my go-to order, it's not as exciting as Caitlin's and Janae's, but it is actually Chipotle. Chipotle is life. So I know I can find it everywhere I go, and I can hop on the DoorDash order and order it. So that's my go-to. With that, I'll popcorn it over to Ruth.
Great. So I'm Ruth. I'm the head of our merchant strategy and ops team. So as Caitlin kind of described, we have these business line GMs and then kind of audience leads. And I'm the audience lead for restaurants. I've been at DoorDash for 5 years and have had a bunch of different roles here, all kind of related to our merchant organization. So account management, I did IPO readiness, so kind of like sales compliance, getting ready for our IPO. I led a startup business, which we know as new restaurant models, some kind of more like experimental areas like DoorDash kitchens and licensing. And then for the last 4 months or so have been in this expanded role on merch and S&O. I live in Denver with my husband and my 1-year-old and my cat, also have a fur baby. And my go-to order on DoorDash is, I'm also going to do an enterprise one. I really love Shake Shack. So I usually get a Shack burger and a milkshake.
Love that.
And
All right. Yeah, I think everybody introduced themselves, right? Yeah, cool. Okay, so we'll kind of I have some questions that we'll have the panelists walk through to give everybody a better sense of what all these things that we just said we do mean. So maybe Ruth, if you could start talking through a little bit about like what in your view is strategy and operations at DoorDash. You can use your specific role to kind of explain that, and like what does it mean to be on that team.
Yeah, so I think you kind of set it up well, which is in my mind, the role of the strategy and ops team here is both to set the strategy for whatever area and direction for whatever area you're leading, like identify hypotheses, what you think the right approach is, pull all the relevant stakeholders together and execute on that strategy, and kind of take ownership over the ultimate. We're very goal-based. So I often think of S&O as kind of the team that's like owning the number, even though there are many different teams that are inputting into that success and kind of like dependencies in order to hit that number. And as you're going along, like iterating and adjusting course as needed to hit that number in the end. I think some of the things that being really good on S&O require are, to me, it's kind of like 50% skills and 50% attitude, like things that are pretty controllable. So I think on the skill side, it's like you need to be a really excellent problem solver, strong analytical capability, good business acumen. To me, the problem solving piece is one of the most important. So I think like you're gonna face a lot of things here that you probably haven't faced in a prior role. And so ultimately the most important thing is that you can kind of like create a good framework around how to think about that problem, make an educated decision, kind of move forward from there. On the kind of like attitude components, we have this DoorDash playbook, which I would definitely recommend people go check out after this to get a sense of the culture. And I think there's some like components of that playbook that stick out to me on S&O. So one is like this concept of ownership. So like I said, I often think of S&O as kind of like owning the number and making sure that we do whatever needs to get done across various teams in the company in order to get to that goal. Another one is bias for action. So we are very much focused here on kind of like taking a leap, making some quick progress and learning from there, not letting perfection get in the way of progress. And then the last one, this isn't, I guess, formally part of our playbook, but I think another one I would say is just perseverance. You'll be asked to take on a lot of hard goals and hard challenges here. And it's, it's definitely a high accountability culture. So I think just like one of the things that's been important for me is learning how to kind of like move through those challenges and view them as interesting learning opportunities and keep going.
Awesome. Jonathan, do you want to give kind of your spin on it?
Yeah, no, I think that's actually a wonderful start, Ruth. And I think if I share a little bit of kind of the work that I do, and I think that's kind of a great pivot to understand some of the uniqueness of roles that we have within strategy and operations. So I sit on the new business verticals, but I'm really specifically focused on supporting our DashMart business. And so for those of you on the call that aren't aware with what DashMart is, it is actually a convenience and grocery store from DoorDash, and we're focused on delivering household essentials, favorite snacks, local favorites, and groceries right to our customers' doorsteps. We're also starting to experiment a lot in growing new warehousing concepts in some of our DashMarts. And so I specifically oversee the go-to-market employee experience team that's sitting on the business. And this team really designs programs, that enhance employee engagement and build a strong workplace culture for our DashMart team members. And so Janae, for example, who works on our DashMart new MB business, is also introducing a lot of new warehousing concepts into our DashMarts. And so I'm specifically focused on really working with our employees on site and the leadership teams to really look at, when we introduce new experiments, what does that experience look like for our employees, and how can we create the most positive experience for teams here, where they want to show up to work versus that desire to just need to work. And so I collaborate really closely with our HR teams. We have wonderful PMP COEs, from benefits to our HR business partners and ER. But I also work really, really closely with our DashMart leadership teams and our own hourly employees that are located at some of these DashMarts to execute on the strategy for this specific team. I share a little bit. I've actually, prior to DoorDash, I've spent the majority of my life in tech. So I spent about 8 years at Uber in customer service, operations, and people strategy work. And then I went over to Workday, where I did a total new shift of work. Then I moved away from S&O and I joined the people ops space. But I definitely missed it. And I thought the S&O is exactly where I belong, but really focus on the people aspect of it. And so here I am today working on the DashMart people experience. And it's definitely really exciting to get to work with all these wonderful people that really are contributing to really helping this business thrive to where we want to get it to. I will share that part of why I love what I do is my personal North Star is to help create positive workplaces for our employees to feel heard, engaged, and empowered. But I'm also super analytical, and I love project management and program management. So being able to blend those superpowers together has been incredible in finding my North Star and what my superpowers are here. So that's a little bit in a nutshell what S&O looks like for me and my specific team and what I do.
Awesome. And Ruth touched on this a little bit already. So I'll just kind of expand on it, and I saw some comments in the chat of like what it takes to be successful. My view on this is like, at the end of the day, the buck stops with you. And to Ruth's point, you own the number. And so that doesn't mean you have to do all the work yourself, but it means you have to be thoughtful about, who do I need to engage across the organization's product, marketing, sales, finance to get this done? What's the North Star goal? What's the mission? Do they understand it? Do they understand how they fit into it? And then, what are the inputs, right? Okay, we need to grow same store sales by X%. We need to build this product feature by this date. And so product team's going to do that. Marketing team, we need you to help launch it, right? Like, so it's kind of tying everything together. So it's like the ability to go broad, but also the challenge is you have to also be able to go deep when it's necessary. And so another way I'll kind of talk a little bit about like my experience in S&O is I feel like I've just done rotations in every single function. Like some quarters I'm really focused on sales because we're trying to sell a new product and find like product market fit, or like figure out the go-to-market motion. Or some quarters, we have to really improve our, take costs out of the system for a delivery perspective, or really improve our quality and be on time more often. So I'm focused really heavily on logistics and analytics and product, right? And so it really, one of the things I love about S&O, it's like lots of tastes of different things. If you're someone who really likes to go super deep to that and like focus on that thing and see that thing through forever, like S&O is probably not the right function. But if you like a little bit of a breadth, but can go deep when it is required, I think that it's a really great role. And on the points of like what makes people successful, I would say three things in my mind. Number one is that ability to go high-low and toggle between them. Most people are really good at one or the other. The best S&O operators can do both. The other is like what we call 1% better every day. Ruth kind of alluded to this. It's like your slope. How fast do you learn? Because by definition, almost everything we're doing is new. And so there's no precedent. It's not like, oh, learn this process or whatever. It's like, make sense of chaos, learn, problem solve. And then the last is just that like ownership and grit. Like, I'm going to get it done no matter what. I'm going to go above the wall, around the wall, through the wall, whatever it's going to take. And we're going to figure out a way. I would say the last thing I'll say here is, one of the really amazing, the reason I'm still at DoorDash is if you looked, for example, some people will say, oh, DoorDash is big because of COVID. Like, but if you look at like our competitors had the same opportunity that we did, which was like, well, we shouldn't think about it as opportunity, but they had the same macro environment that we did. But the execution, the ability to set a goal and execute and fail really quickly and iterate, and willingness to roll up sleeves. Like during the early parts of the pandemic, every single person at this company was making menus because every restaurant in the US wanted to get on the platform. And so like we would spend, everybody would take like a day and just make menus because we couldn't keep up with the thing. So what and you can see like post-COVID, our trajectory has really overtaken a lot of our competition. And it's because of our ability to set the North Star, but then that execution piece. And so like, yes, it's a little bit for folks who there's a lot of people on this call that it seems like they're from consulting. Like there's a lot of the same mental and problem solving and thinking you need to do that you do in consulting. The difference is though, you own the outcome, you own the number. Now you have to go make that happen and will that thing into existence. And that's a very different skill set. So you get to marry both. Ruth or Jonathan, anything else to add on what it takes to be successful at DoorDash before we kind of go to the next topic?
No, I mean, if I can quickly add what it takes to be successful here, and I didn't share, but I'm just shy from 5 months here, right? And so it's really exciting to be a part of this panel with all of these wonderful people. I think what's really important when you first even just start a new journey is just being very curious and being open to that challenge of hopping onto such a company that's changing every single day, and that constant wanting to get 1% better every day. I can tell you, building a strategy from scratch and executing against that strategy and reflecting back 4 months now, it's incredible to see that. But I think going back to what Ruth said, it comes with also attitude. So I just would amplify that.
All right. So switching gears a little bit, maybe we can hear from Janae. How did you build your brand when you joined DoorDash? And kind of like maybe challenges you've had or ways you've overcome that to be successful on your team?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'll start by sharing that the perspective that I'm going to share is specifically going to be from someone who had to switch industries. So for me, building my personal brand was really important from the get-go, just because, as early as the interview process, I wanted to make sure that my consulting background and a lot of the foundational skills that I learned at Deloitte could really translate well into how can I be successful, as you all have described, in S&O at DoorDash. So when I was asked, what is your superpower? I responded and said, my superpower is problem solving. So that's been my own personal brand. You can give me any solution any problem, I will come up with a solution. I might not have the background in the issue, but I can come up with really hacky ways to solve it and figure out who we need to talk to, find the data, etc. What was challenging though is even though I had that background at Deloitte we had kind of a playbook. We have guidelines, we have regulations and frameworks that we needed to follow in order to help to support our clients. At DoorDash, as Caitlin just mentioned, we're kind of figuring it out as we go. We people love to say we're building the plane as we fly it. We want to figure out solutions, fail fast, iterate, and make really impactful outcomes for our businesses. And I think that was one of the newest parts of the environment that I hadn't experienced before. I specifically was working on our alcohol category expansion. So at DashMart, I was tasked with how can we get alcohol at every single one of our stores? And we were only a year in when I joined. We were only in a few stores and I launched it pretty much everywhere we can now. And it was really hard. I had no alcohol experience. I had no idea how to get alcohol at our stores. But as Ruth mentioned, Caitlin and Jonathan, it's really about how you want to dive into the weeds, how you can set the strategy, build teams, find the data. And that's kind of what my personal brand has been before I joined DoorDash. And that's kind of how I saw it grow as I progressed.
And then one last question for you has there been someone at DoorDash who's been influential in helping you learn like how to be successful here, or you just learned through observing something that they did? What was that thing?
That's a great question. I think a lot of my experience has been learning through observing my senior managers and my directors. I specifically remember them mentioning to me, Janae, dream big. That's another one of our values. Sorry, I'm like spitting out all of our values. It's, dream big and start small. Like, what would you do if you could do anything? And that really inspired me to like really transcend my own thinking of, well, we can really do anything here. Like we can see the industry trends. We can see the opportunities, as Caitlin mentioned, like what is possible and what will it take. So I think being in meetings with my directors, hearing them share what the DoorDash values are and where we're trying to go, I think that really inspired me to take my problem solving and critical thinking to another level.
Awesome. And then Sebastian, would love to hear your take on the same sets of questions. So establishing your brand, challenges, and then how you learned along the way from who.
Yeah, sure. I think like I said, I think coming into the role a year and a half ago, I was kind of thinking of like, establishing my brand in 3 ways. It was like, I know what I'm good at, but I need to learn like how does that fit into like the broader team and like what value can I add? Once I figured that out, it was like effective networking, like meet as many people as I can and make sure people know like who I am, what my team does, and how I can help like cross-functionally. And then the third would be like to find opportunities to like provide thought leadership and expertise into like tough problems that the business is solving. So that's kind of like what I wanted to do from a personal standpoint. I think also from a team standpoint, I had like a team of 4 initially coming in. The team I think needed a rebranding. I quickly realized that we didn't everything like in strategy and operations, like at DoorDash, like everything is like do you have like prioritization? Do you have a big project that you're like leading or working on for the business? And when I started, like just for whatever reasons, like my team did not. So it was like we had to like get scrappy, figure out how to still add value without like product prioritization, all those things. So we found a way. So basically I had to push my team to get creative. What can we do without product help? And then start thinking about, all right, when we get the next opportunity, right, and when we're doing planning, like what are we going to ask for? How are we going to get on the map to basically have that vision and be able to get across the line? So everybody has great ideas. It's a matter of like, can you communicate the vision and the dream and like effectively like get that like above the line, right? So I think like we did that. Like I got my team to do that, like 6 months in after we kind of rebranded ourselves, and then our goal now is like from now on we will always have something being worked on that's good for the business. So that was kind of like personal and team branding.
Cool. All right. So one other thing I'll say too, that's it's a challenge, but also it's unique about DoorDash. Like when new folks start, the best way to get started is literally just give them a project. Like, okay, like start working right away, because there isn't a lot of theory here, to the point that, there's our values and how we operate. But once you understand that, and then once you understand your goal and your North Star, you have the white space to go figure out how to do that. You have your constraints, you stay in the lines most of the time, but you can make failures and you can go this way and then try and like learn quickly and come this way. And I think that's a challenge for some folks who, especially like I had done, this was one of the first roles where I had to make a lot of decisions myself versus provide a recommendation. And that I think was the hardest thing for me. It was like, oh, I'm really on the line for this. I'm not like just suggesting you do it, but like, most of the time I put a recommendation even here in front of my boss and they're like, cool, what do you think we should do? And I'm like, they're like, you just make the call, you do it. I'm like, cool. Okay, got it. So I think that was a hard challenge to get used to over time. Like now I'm very used to making many decisions every day, but it's a muscle to build. And the other piece I'll add is like many folks on this call, tend to be type A or, want to achieve a lot and be right. And like, that's actually not a value at DoorDash. There's no value anywhere that says be right, be correct. It's get to the right answer the fastest, right? Which means you can be wrong. And then you should be intellectually honest about the fact that you're wrong and share what you learned and what you're going to do about it. That's really celebrated here. And I do think that that is a challenge sometimes for folks who get started in this culture who are, you know, the way kind of we think about it is like, it's better done, you know, better done than perfect. And just like, you know, just get something out there into the wild.
Can I add something to that, Caitlin?
Yes, you can.
No, I especially that piece of like, it doesn't have to be perfect to get it out right. And as someone who is always striving to, there's a saying that I have, it's go above and Beyonce. If you do the Beyonce, we're doing more than the beyond, right? And that's always a goal. And so really specifically here, it's having to shift my mindset that even if we have something that's just at 70 or 80%, knowing that we're going to optimize it and fix it later and come back to it, and we're really committed to this outcome. I think it's one thing I've noticed a very big shift here versus my other roles in tech. And so it actually, that 1% better piece and bias for action show up a lot in the day-to-day here. And I think it's in a way, it's really exciting to be able to do that for someone to be able to just roll out programs and people being so open to it. But I found that you got to bring people on the journey with you to be able to get there.
Cool. Jonathan or Janae, anything to add on like how your brand has evolved, or, and if the answer is no, that's fine. We can move to the next section, but how has your brand changed as you've kind of been here? Anything to add there?
I think the one thing I will add about it changing is, again, so started here when DashMart was a year old. Now we're 3 years in. So I think I've just learned more about myself personally and also just through working with others. So my role is extremely cross-functional. I work with a lot of different teams here. I've also had the opportunity to get promoted and grow and work with a lot of different leadership. So I think just a recommendation on personal brand is, you know, you might have your own thoughts on what you bring to the table and where you add value, but never be afraid to ask for feedback and collect that from others, even with people who you might not work with as closely, but maybe come in contact with, because any feedback and perspective is valuable. I think I was reading some quotes, and I think it was Bezos who said, like, a part of your brand is what people say in the room when you're not there, and you want to make sure that people, your reflection of your work and executing and hitting on things, like as Jonathan just said, make sure you bring people along with you. So even if we're 70% of the problem solved, people know that and are aware of, like, hey, this is where we're at, these are the open gaps, this is what it takes to get all the way, so that people can go along with you. And then you're just like also being an owner of your own brand and what you bring to the table. So I think as a part of like how I've seen myself grow, it's just always reaching out to people, making sure that I'm hitting on the right things. That's what I always make sure to do.
All right, so I'll move on to the next topic, and I see we have a lot of questions and stuff in the chat, so we'll make sure we save time to try to get to some of those. Maybe Ruth, you can start us off here. Would love to hear about like a project, a business, a feature that you shipped or launched or worked on that you feel like encapsulates the S&O experience, and maybe we can just go into a little bit more detail of that so folks get like a real life example.
Yeah, sure. So when I actually started at DoorDash, I wasn't really in S&O. I was actually in an account management role. And so like a part of building my brand, I basically kind of had this goal that I like wanted to move into S&O. And so part of what I did in that first role was like try to build my brand as someone who could kind of like hang in S&O through a bunch of side projects. And I kind of got my like break-in opportunity through this IPO readiness role. So basically like DoorDash was kind of preparing to go public. We determined that we couldn't find a lot of our contracts, and we needed to be able to do that in order to recognize all of the revenue that we collect from merchants and go public comfortably. As I had kind of like built a brand as someone who was good at solving problems, getting to the lowest level of detail, working cross-functionally, and was familiar with our sales organization. And as a result was asked if I would take on kind of this tour of duty leading contract compliance and revenue recognition for like a year or so, get us over the finish line, put a team in place that could lead this work ongoing, and then like kind of go move on to the next thing. And I think this kind of like 10-month time span for me was a really good brand building opportunity. So the kind of like North Star metric that I was aiming for was to have 99.9% of our revenue reconciled, which basically meant like if I were to pull out a delivery out of a hat and say like, hey, you know, this delivery was $20 and we charged a merchant $3, that I could then like find a contract that substantiated why we did that. And then I could do that 99.9% of the time, which is actually really, really hard because we have like hundreds of thousands of partners, tens of different products and services, and we like renegotiate those deals all the time. So there's just like tons of contracts that can potentially be lost. And so in the end, it ended up being this kind of massive cross-functional effort. Actually, I worked a bunch with Caitlin and her team across basically like every team that was selling a product or service at DoorDash or involved in the sales, like, you know, such as the sales team, to figure out how to put controls in place around the products and pricing that we're selling, the sort of like quote to cash process that's being followed, both by the reps and in our systems, and then make sure we have a way of like storing all those contracts so that they can be like surfaced at scale if we're trying to reconcile revenue. And so, yeah, like massive cross-functional effort, pretty high priority and visibility for the company at the time. And in the end, we did the job and we went public. So that was great. And I think really helped me kind of build my brand with across a bunch of different teams, both with like peers as well as some of our executives, and move on to some additional interesting roles in the future.
Yeah, some of our best folks have come from raising their hand to do something that no one else wanted to do. So it kind of gave them that visibility and, you know, the opportunity to kind of prove themselves, and then have moved on to other roles that, you know, maybe are a better long-term fit for them, which they're excited about. And so I think that's just another example of our culture and our ethos, which is like, it is one team. Like we all pitch in and have to do the like less sexy stuff once in a while. But like at the end of the day, that's why we are successful, because we're not above doing those things. And so I love that example, Ruth. I'm sure you didn't think you were going to do that when you came to DoorDash.
Definitely. I was like, what is revenue recognition? But yeah, actually, I mean, to that point, I actually remember my manager at the time calling me, kind of like pitching me on taking this opportunity. And she was like, it's going to be a grind. It's like, yeah, it's not going to be pretty, but it's like something that is really important to the company and needs to be done. And I think if you crush it, and put in your time, then like you'll have a lot of opportunities looking ahead.
Yeah. Awesome. How about Sebastian? Would love to hear about a specific project or product or feature that you led or launched.
Yeah, sure. So like I mentioned briefly before, when I first started, there was nothing really big that my team was like had prioritized from like a product standpoint. So it gave us like a lot of time for me to just ask why, and like what we previously asked for, and like kind of what is possible for the non-restaurants like 1P business. And there was this like new product feature. It was a new concept of Dasher efficiency, where we're basically making longer routes, more orders that had previously just never been prioritized. And we'd had some failed simulations, and there was a lot of like criticism on the idea in general that it wouldn't be like of high quality, and nobody would want to do them. So I basically took the challenge on myself to like figure out like, well, why have we been talking about this thing for like 2 years and we haven't done it yet? So I pushed my team to like get back in the data, like reanalyze it, like communicate it in a different way. And when it came time to ask for it, we ultimately did kind of convince like leadership and the cross-functional team that it was something worthwhile. And to Caitlin's point before, like you don't always have to be right. I think we just communicated like a good vision. And the first experiment we ran was actually like not successful. So then I had to, but then again, it was like I was able to communicate why it wasn't successful, and why I think if we pivot just slightly and change the product feature slightly, then it would be successful. And that was enough to get another quarter's worth of experimentation. And that second one, we ended up being successful. We ended up shipping the product and save a bunch of money for the company. And And again, this turned into like nobody wanted to do it. It was just like very specific to like drive retail. And then now like we ended up presenting it to Prabir, our COO, and he said it was like the most exciting thing he's heard in a while. And it's grown now to some company level initiative that we're expanding to other lines of business. So it's really cool. And it kind of just goes back to the brand, right? I think if you ask like people, like I think people think like if you give me something like a tough problem, like I'm gonna get it done, right? Or at least prove that it's like, is it possible or not? And that's kind of like what I want people to think of me. So.
All right. So I think we'll kind of start to get into some Q&A from the group. So let's see. I'm just pulling this up here. There's a lot of questions. So curious about how DoorDash handles company OKRs. Are the initiatives driven by S&O teams? So OKRs, like if you work at DoorDash, every Monday you will open up a spreadsheet and you will fill in your OKRs for the week. Some people will say, why don't you just create a dashboard for that? Like, I like it. It's accountability. I have to put in the number and am I red or am I green? And then I have to explain why. So OKRs is a huge part of our culture. And we have different levels throughout the organization, right? So Tony and Prabir, they will set like their top line goals. And then teams, like each layer, each level kind of has their own sets of OKRs, which are inputs into all of these things, right? But very clearly, like there is an objective. I'll use my organization as an example, maybe to bring it to life. I'm responsible for volume and profitability of the platform business for restaurants, which is the white label business. So the inputs to that are how many stores we onboard to that product, what is the orders per store per week we can drive from those products, how can we grow them, how much money do we make, like what are we charging, how do we lower our costs, and then to do the white label delivery, we're not going to grow if we're 40 minutes late every time, right? And so we'll have goals around those types of things. And so for me, I own the volume and the profitability, but then I start to assign out to either folks on my team who then assign to themselves, and or maybe us like, hey, we can't not be late if we don't get product involved because we have to change our predictors, and like we also need analytics and all that. And so there's a huge like interlock process, if you will, where essentially we all at the end of a quarter going into the next quarter, we all look at each other in the eyes, we all hold hands and we say, okay, this is the goal for next quarter, here's how everyone ladders into it, here are the numbers we're going to report out on every week. And the expectation, at least that I set with my team, is if your number is red, understand why it's red, tell us what would need to be true to get back to plan, and make a recommendation on what we should do next. If your number is green, like, why is it green? Can we go bigger here? Is there an insight that we like overlooked that actually this is a bigger opportunity? There's no yellow at DoorDash, you're red or you're green. Like if you're green, also, you don't get to just like chill. It's like, wait, what's working here? Oh my gosh, we got to pour fuel on that fire. Raise your goal, right? And so, and like we have to do that in a way where we're not burning out teams and we're keeping them motivated, right? So that there's always an art and a science to that. And we don't always get it perfect. But I would say, like largely it is S&O teams driving the overall OKRs, and then working with their other like I work with my product counterpart, and they figure out OKRs for their organization to ladder into the business strategy, if that makes sense. All right. I would imagine there's a lot of cross-functional collaboration from the S&O team with other teams at DoorDash. Can you speak to that a little bit more, and how does the team fit within the broader organization? Would somebody else on the panel like to tackle that question?
Sure. Yes, it's highly cross-functional. So I think as Caitlin said, like usually S&O would be setting kind of the business strategy, and a lot of the more like platform type teams will end up being inputs to enabling us to hit that business strategy. So oftentimes usually a key partner is our product team. Often I find that like we're most successful when we have aligned goals with our product counterparts. So we're both actually like aiming for the same things, and then we kind of have like different inputs that we control in terms of hitting those. There may also be more like functionally specialized type teams that you're working with. So you may need to work with the integrations team or the legal team or the finance team, depending on the type of initiative that you're trying to move forward. And often S&O is playing that role of kind of identifying who are the different stakeholders who I need to pull in order to drive this initiative forward. And like, how am I getting their buy-in? How am I getting their OKRs for this quarter aligned with mine so that I can hit this kind of like top line goal.
Let's see. Can you share examples of key metrics, quantitative or qualitative, your teams use to measure the performance of strategies? So I think it depends, right? It depends on what line of business you're on, what teams you're on. So I talked a little bit about some of mine. I think if you're in there's some folks in Ruth's organization as an example, because she has responsible for an audience where merchant NPS is a score that we track and monitor. So I don't know if there's other folks who want to share maybe some key stats that like have been, or KPIs that you have leveraged. The other thing I'll say before we go there is DoorDash is a very data-driven company. At the same time, like, yes, we can look at an experiment and be like, oh my gosh, look at this. It's, we were late by 40 minutes, 80% of the time. What the heck happened? And I could look at data all day. I could also go call those five of the Dashers that had those deliveries and just be like, what happened? And I'm realizing, oh gosh, there was a glitch in, the app, or, hey, this one Chipotle store is literally never has the food ready on time. And I'm always waiting for 40 minutes, which maybe I could have seen in the data, but I got to that answer way faster by just calling like 3 of the Dashers and figured it out. And so we like to marry both. A lot of our documents and like ways we run projects are not just about, it's like, here's the goal, here's the mission, but then a lot of for who, as a merchant, I need to do X. As a customer, this product needs to do this. As a Dasher, this product needs to do this. And then we bring in verbatims, right? Of like, here's the customer or Dasher or merchant experience. So I think like there's like the business goals, which are many times the numbers. There's audience goals, which are some of those other things that I was just talking about. And then there's like, laddering into the business and the go-to-market and sales and all of that. There's like the pure logistics side. So it really varies depending on like which team you're on. If I didn't capture something that somebody wants to add, please do. Okay, there's another question. Does failing fast affect the customer experience? That's a really good question. The answer is, you also have to be smart about what you can fail fast on and what you can't. Like the way Tony describes it is a decision reversible? Then like, go do it. If a decision is not reversible and you will like, if you were wrong and there is extreme harm done and there's no road coming back from that, like maybe pause for a second, ask a couple people before you do it. So I think, we do have to calibrate on what are the things that are okay to ship. And look, so a lot of this too, we just do like, there's a big thing at DoorDash, pilot. You do a pilot first, right? So you don't want to go be wrong on 100% of the population, no matter what you're doing, right? Either you're running an A/B test or you're running like an operational pilot or a sales pilot where you're just, talking to 20 of the leads instead of 2,000 of the leads, things like that. So we also like try to limit exposure to mistakes by starting small. But there are certain things where, yes, like, it does not make sense to do that. There's no turning back from it. So like, we're not going to fail fast on that one. We're going to get that decision right. Let's see. There's a question of, have you seen DoorDash prioritize AI and ML initiatives within the company, especially in product? Are there other, maybe somebody on the call who might want to share an example of how they've seen it in their day-to-day?
I can share one. So one area we're going really big on right now is photos. So we have millions of menu items. It's very challenging to get photos for all of them, but it really improves the consumer experience to be able to see what you're going to expect to get in your order. And so while we have a pretty strong stance that we don't want to like create photos of things that are not real and break customer trust, there are a lot of opportunities to kind of like enhance photos to improve the approval rate of the photos that consumers submit or merchants submit to us. So for example, we have requirements around the dimensions of what you put into the app. Because you know, we've got different views on your phone, on your computer, like if you're on the home page, on the store page. And if you don't meet those dimensions requirements, we might reject your photo, but we could use AI to like outpaint the photo to get it to be the right dimensions. Or we may get a photo that's submitted that doesn't meet our design standards because there's a bunch of like junk in the background, and we might be able to use AI to kind of like clean that up, but still maintain the integrity of like the food item. So there are actually like tons of different ways that we're testing using AI within the company, but that's sort of like one specific one that I've found to be cool and interesting.
Yeah, there's another one I've seen recently where you know, when you what we call like a never delivered. So when you order and you just don't get your stuff, it doesn't happen that often. Like we're pretty good as a company, but when it does, it's like the worst experience you could possibly have as a customer. So we're like very focused on like reducing that to zero as much as possible. And then usually like if that happens, our first like stop to check like what happened is like, did the dasher take a picture like when they delivered it? And you know, we see like sometimes they're inconclusive. So we're starting to use like an ML model now to like basically like train the model. Like, can you score it? Can you provide feedback? Can you like get ahead of the problem upstream and tell the dasher like, hey, can you take a better picture? So again, just things we're thinking about how to innovate to like improve the customer experience in the end. I thought that was pretty cool. We did recently.
Yeah, I think the answer is big yes. There's a lot of things you'll see externally, but there's also like internal tools and ways we can make ourselves more efficient that we have certain teams working on as well. I think S&O teams are probably working on that a little less, but yeah, it's really, really exciting and lots of applications for sure. Okay, we're at 5 minutes left. I think I'll start to close us off here. Great conversation today. Thank you everybody for the awesome questions and the great engagement. A couple of like parting thoughts maybe for the group. So we talked a lot about like there's a lot of like you know, positives about the S&O role and organization. You know, you get to experience many different types of problems, different functions, all those types of things. You're at the end of the day the owner, you know, buck stops with you, things like that. There's always a flip side to that, right? Which is sometimes I own a number and like the product team is an input to that and they don't actually report to me, and that's like a tough position to feel in if you haven't built that relationship well or something's not going right. And so for some people it's not like their jam. They don't feel enough in control. But the beauty of the like, and that's why the attitude piece that Ruth talked about at the top of the call is so important. Because it's at the end of the day, it's not about you, individual S&O person, being right or getting the right answer or getting to the number. It's how did you get the team to the answer, to the number? Doesn't matter where the idea came from, who did it, but like how do you bring that out and drive the results? I would say like my time at DoorDash has been extremely fruitful. As I mentioned, I've had to make a lot of decisions, which at, you know, the rapid pace of which I'm making decisions because of our growth, because of the autonomy I get at this company that is like hands down different from any other company I've ever worked with. I've worked at like a company of 40 people and I had a fraction of the autonomy that I have at a company of 5,000 people. It's actually pretty wild. I've learned a lot, and I've learned mostly by failing. And I think though, like I'll use an example of this. DoorDash has grown a lot. So I've had to probably hire over 60 people, if not more, during my time here. And oh, wow, I have made some mistakes, right? But I'm making a little bit fewer mistakes now because I've started to learn. And, you know, if I wasn't at DoorDash, it would probably be my whole lifetime that I would ever hire 60 people. So like you get those at bats, you get those ability to put yourself on the line and make a decision and be accountable to it. What I just have found is folks develop much more quickly in this environment than they would potentially in other environments, which is why I love it and why I'm still here. I think the other thing I'm taking away, I saw like a comment in the questions was like, how has things changed since, you know, the company has gotten bigger? You know, honestly, it has changed, but not in how you would think it would change. I'll give you an example. We were talking to McDonald's about something and going back and forth with their CEO, and Tony just grabbed their CEO. They went in the car and did some dashing so he could show them, you know, how does this work? Like, what is the experience of a dasher? What does that feel like? So like, there's no, you know, there's lots of rolling up your sleeves mentality. There's a lot of no job is beneath you, but it's really cool because you're at a company now that has even bigger impact. So while yes, sometimes you have to do some of those non-sexy things, the impact you're having is actually massive. And you get to see it in real life. That's the other really cool part. And so what the team has done a very good job is keep those values like at the forefront of how we operate. I know you guys probably feel like, oh my gosh, you guys have talked about this the whole time. DoorDash is crazy, like whatever. But like we actually live them, and they were all built off of certain people from the beginning of the company and things that they were doing well. Like they wasn't just like Tony was like sitting down. I was like, here's the things I want us to care about. He saw what was working and like created, we created like narrated stories around each of the values and like specific examples of when this person did this person did that. And that what has made it very similar from early days to now. I would say the biggest change is like, you just got to coordinate with more people than you used to. So like for some people that, you know, you feel like maybe, oh, you're slowing down, but the way we don't become bureaucratic is, you have to tell people what you're doing, but you don't have to ask for permission. Right. And so we're not trying to slow anyone down, but like you should make people aware that, oh, I'm going to run this massive promotion. So Dasher team, like, watch out, make sure we have more supply. Right. You have to have that responsibility, but you're not asking them permission, but you're just making sure that they have the information they need to do their job. And I would say that's how we've kept this like scrappy, fast moving culture, which has been an amazing feat given the size at which we are now. All right. I think we're at time. Thank you all for joining. And this was awesome. And I'm like super pumped. We have tons of roles available on the site. So please go apply. We'd love to hear from you. And have a great rest of your day.